Wow, so that only took zero point 0.3 seconds to run my entire vault. That's wildly fast. What's cool is that this points to something like second brain, and a second brain is something that helps you with thinking. So it actually does make sense that second brain and metacognition are very related to one another. Hello, my name is Callum, also known as Wanderloots, and welcome to today's video on AI in Obsidian, using AI plugins within Obsidian and running your own local model. This video is part of my AI in Obsidian series, where I'm learning and talking about how you can integrate AI within Obsidian to augment your personal knowledge management system, or your second brain, in a free, private, and local secure way. It's actually really quite easy to get going once you understand what's happening behind the scenes. I know that AI can feel pretty overwhelming with how quickly everything is changing. I also know that many people use Obsidian specifically because it is local and private, so the thought of adding artificial intelligence, AI, to it feels a bit counterintuitive. That's why for myself, I have a series of goals and requirements that are essential for me to integrate AI in Obsidian. A key goal of this series is to identify AI tools that are local, private, secure, and free, so that you can be sure that the type of information that you're adding to the AI system within your Obsidian vault is something that you feel comfortable doing. As an intellectual property lawyer and patent agent, keeping your ideas secure, private, and within your control is very important to me, which is why I'm making this series to help people understand the different styles of AI that can be integrated within Obsidian to help you make the most informed choice possible on how you can begin augmenting your personal knowledge management with artificial intelligence. In today's video, I'm going to walk through my goals for using AI in Obsidian, comparing the different options available, and picking the easiest and most effective one to get started with: Smart Connections. Installing the Smart Connections plugin, along with its benefits, features, and limitations. By the end of this video, you'll have a custom AI operating within Obsidian to help you surface insights and make smart connections between your nodes. In part 2, we'll go a bit deeper into another plugin, Obsidian Copilot, and I'll actually show you how you can run your own local model with LM Studio or Ollama that connects to both Copilot and Smart Connections, so you can keep your data private while still using AI in Obsidian. A surprising comparison on how the local models work with the Smart Connections plugin as compared to the Copilot plugin. And finally, how I plan to actually use these plugins moving forward. I began using Obsidian over 2 years ago, and one of the reasons that I chose Obsidian is because it operates on Markdown files. Markdown files are the most basic form of text editing that you can think of as a Lego brick or a building block that can be plugged into any software in the future. This makes Obsidian the perfect platform to keep track of your knowledge in your personal knowledge management system with an eye towards AI integration, because it's really easy for you to take any folder or your entire vault and connect it to an AI system that allows you to ask specific questions about your custom vault. That said, before bringing AI into Obsidian, I wanted to explore how my own brain works. I wanted to understand how I make connections between thoughts, ideas, and new concepts as I build out my research, my writing, and my learning. So that's why over the last couple years, I've been really expanding my own system of note-taking to understand how I think. The goal for me has always been to use AI to boost my second brain, to augment my personal knowledge management system rather than replace it. And for me, that's really why I wanted to understand how my own brain operates before beginning to introduce AI to it. Now, as an intellectual property lawyer and patent agent, again, the connection of AI to my existing knowledge base, my ideas, my intellectual property is very important to me. And because I've been planning on introducing AI into Obsidian for so long, I've been writing articles about this for years, I have a very clear set of guidelines and expectations, requirements that need to be met in order for me to give something access to my vault. In other words, I have some benchmarks on what will actually make an AI integration with Obsidian a successful solution for me personally. So to get started with today's video, I just wanted to walk through what these expectations are, what my requirements are, and the goals that I actually have for integrating artificial intelligence within my Obsidian vault. A lot of people look to AI to replace them, to replace the work that they're doing so that they don't have to write or generate their own words when they're trying to produce some kind of output. However, for myself, I think that there's actually a lot of value in going through the writing process yourself. There's something called the generation effect, which is that when you take a concept and you're trying to learn it, by converting it into your own words without using an AI tool, you actually understand the concept much more deeply and you remember it longer. So for me, one of the main goals here is that I'm not trying to replace myself as a writer or a thinker with AI, but I'm trying to augment it. I'm trying to boost my existing thinking and writing with an artificial intelligence tool, not just create some type of text generator that will automatically create Obsidian notes for me. So here are the 3 goals that I want you to keep in mind as I go through these next 2 videos on the integration of artificial intelligence with Obsidian. Goal 1, surfacing insights and boosting ideas. The goal here is to try and leverage AI's ability to recognize patterns, distill information, and make connections between topics and notes that I might have missed. This brings us to the first plugin, Smart Connections, which is the main purpose of this plugin. Goal 2, leverage the links I'm already making to help me make more connections. I want to be able to leverage Obsidian's knowledge graph, the graph view, to give additional context to the AI I use. In other words, I don't just want a ChatGPT style chatbot that answers questions, I want an AI that actually leverages the unique connections I've been making all across my vault. I expand more on what I mean by this with the different tags and topics and maps of content, how I structure my Obsidian vault in this video here on my Obsidian organization. This type of integration with my Obsidian vault gets into what's called embeddings. You can think of an embedding as kind of a map of meaning, where you take your entire vault and you split it up into a whole bunch of little chunks that all get sorted into a database that the AI can access very easily and understand the relative similarity between different parts of your vault. This is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short. Adding a knowledge graph component with something like Obsidian can introduce what's called graph RAG, which is actually a far more powerful way to access specific information, to retrieve information, to augment the generation. Typically, to get into GraphRag, you have to start introducing specific customized AI solutions. So I'm interested in seeing how the 2 plugins that I'm going to talk about in this video leverage the connections already existing in my Obsidian Vault without actually getting into a full GraphRag system. Goal 3, the AI integration must be local, private, and free. Another major goal is for me to be able to do all of this AI integration locally, so that I'm not reliant on a cloud server that can be turned off at any time, or potentially risk sending my data to cloud servers, which could be a very bad idea if you're doing this for business or anything related to intellectual property or patentable ideas or confidential client work. My plan for today is to start with the absolute easiest way to integrate AI into your vault that allows me to surface insights and make new connections between my notes in a way that doesn't become intrusive, where it's introducing new things directly into my vault. Instead, I can leverage the AI to identify the patterns in my thinking that will help me produce my own writing, research, and learning better. So I'm going to start with the easiest way that you can do this, and then I'm going to work my way up through a few more complicated plugins and how you can actually run a local AI model on your own computer that can then connect to these plugins within Obsidian to ensure that your information is kept private and secure. A quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you're finding this video helpful, as your support really means a lot to me. Now, let's dive into an overview of the different options for plugins to integrate AI within Obsidian. Okay, so now that you understand a bit more about my goals of using AI with Obsidian, identifying patterns, leveraging the graph view, and something that runs locally to protect my data, to keep my information and my ideas private, I thought it'd be a good time to take a look at all the different options that we have for integrating AI into Obsidian. I've been thinking about this for a few years. You can see I wrote an article back in August 2023 on mental safety from AI anxiety. And one of the big things that I was focusing on with this is the ability to connect AI to a knowledge graph to augment a personal knowledge management system. So you can see here, this is my Obsidian Vault from August 2023. It's pretty tiny, and it's cool to see how much it's grown. My point for bringing this up is that I've been thinking about this for many years. For me, AI is a natural next step for integrating within my personal knowledge management system in Obsidian, but I have a few essential elements for me to actually begin using AI in Obsidian. Now, over the last few months, after planning out how I want to integrate AI in Obsidian, I've now been actually executing on building out my system within Obsidian to truly produce my second brain. So that's what this playlist has been, the Obsidian Digital Gardening and PKM. This has been all in preparation for me to identify how I'm actually thinking as a human, like what it means for me as an individual to think, with an eye to an AI future, with an eye to integrating all of these systems, all of this ideology and philosophy and customization into an AI system. So a big one here is how I organize my Obsidian Vault, tags, topics, and maps of content. And the reason for that is because the way that I want to use AI is not just to do things for me. It's meant to help me, not replace me. I want AI to augment what I can already do to save me time and energy while increasing the quality and depth of my output. By using all of this structure that I've been producing in Obsidian with tags and topics, I've now structured my vault for emergent potential. So by producing a structure that works for me in Obsidian, I now have the opportunity to augment this structure with emergence from AI. So that's why I started with a non-AI integrated vault, and I've been building out my system for the last 6 or 7 months on YouTube and for the last 3 years personally. And now we're finally at a point where I'm ready to integrate AI in Obsidian, and I am excited. So in my opinion, the best way to begin assessing how you want to integrate AI into your Obsidian Vault is to use AI to have a conversation about the different options. So that's what you can see here. I've been using NotebookLM. I have the plan. An element of that is to take my molecular zettelkasten system and add AI to it so that I can augment what I'm producing in my digital garden. So I have a big conversation with a whole bunch of different sources on different AI tools, and I've been assessing them for months with an eye towards those goals that I mentioned on identifying patterns, leveraging the graph view, and something that runs locally to protect my data. So after I kind of worked through my ideas with NotebookLM, I then moved over to Perplexity, which is another AI chatbot that you can use. And Perplexity is really good because it allows you to connect to the internet. So it actually produces sources to help you deepen your research and go find where the information is actually coming from. So you can do this on ChatGPT as well now if you ask ChatGPT to search, but I found Perplexity does a better job at this type of integration with the internet. So what I did was I had a conversation where I told Perplexity to assume that I'm a sophisticated user. I'm someone that understands technology and understands a lot of various possibilities with how AI can be used. And I wanted it to suggest a list of the top tools that can integrate with Obsidian. So I went back and forth and had some conversations. I did some research and pulled some data myself on the number of downloads for different plugins. And this is the table that Perplexity gave me. And you can see here that I had a key element that I wanted it to check was that it can run locally. And I wanted it to also be able to have auto connection suggestions within Obsidian. Again, remember, if I'm structuring my vault for emergence, I can just keep creating the structure, adding the topics and the tags, and the auto connection suggestion, the linking between notes suggested by AI, can introduce that emergent potential because it can identify patterns and connections that I might have missed. So you can kind of think of this as an automatic insight surfacer. And then because each of these different plugins has different features, I wanted a list of all of the key features. That might be something for me to test out and explore. So you can see here that the top three are Copilot for Obsidian, Smart Connections, and Text Generator. So I went through and I checked out all the different downloads for Code, Smart Second Brain, AI Tagger, and I found that a lot of these had quite a few less downloads. And while that's not a deal breaker, the more downloads a particular plugin has, the more likely that the bugs have been worked out and there's a solid user base which will keep supporting the creator of these applications, of these plugins, so that you don't have to worry about the plugin becoming out of date or being deprecated. Now, using a centralized system like a plugin that you're relying on someone else to maintain the software, there is always a risk in that. So again, the goal here is that the true value that I'm building here is inside of the markdown files in Obsidian that can be interpreted by a plugin. So that, for example, let's say I start using Copilot and it gets deprecated. Hopefully there's another plugin that I'll be able to use that will just be able to read my entire vault and I can just continue where I left off. I'm not putting all of my eggs in one basket with a plugin like Copilot. Because, for example, I can use the exact same vault to connect to Smart Connections. So in other words, I want to use something that I think is going to be the most likely to be maintained in the long run, especially with how quick everything tends to change with artificial intelligence. I want the plugin to be able to run locally so that I don't have to send any of my data to the cloud, to ChatGPT or to Amazon or other providers. And I want it to also be able to have an auto connection suggestion. That's hard to say. So looking at that, there seems to be two clear winners. There's Copilot for Obsidian and there is Smart Connections. So while these other ones sound interesting, today I'm going to focus on these two options. And I did some research into how they each work. And based on my understanding, I think that Smart Connections is probably the easier tool to use because it enables semantic search and note linking and AI embeddings very easily without having to run some external model like LM Studio or Ollama, which I'll get more into in a moment. And then if you want to get deeper into the AI integration by running your own model locally, you can get into the Smart Chat. And this Smart Chat feature is similar to what Copilot brings in from the beginning, which is the Vault Q&A, running local models, having text editing, and generally just being able to work with your notes rather than just purely generating things for you. So with that in mind, Smart Connections, I would say, is an easy integration, though I'm going to install it for the first time right now, so we'll see how it goes. And Copilot is a little bit more complicated, just because if you want to get into the true local running system, we have to install either LM Studio or Ollama. I'll get into those in a little bit. So now let's take a look at Smart Connections. So if you go to Smart Connections website, you can see it's smartconnections.app. They have the option to install the Obsidian plugin, which I will show you in a moment. And it has Smart Connections and the ability to introduce local embeddings. So it has all of the features that I'm looking for, that it can both run local. It has a local embedding model so that zero data leaves your machine, and it generates automatic connections between your nodes. So that checks off two of my goals. Now let's take a look quickly at the GitHub. So I always like to verify how these AI systems are actually going to work. So let's do a search for local. So you can see here, Smart Connections, AI-powered Note Connections v2.3, supports local chat models like Ollama and LM Studio, has hundreds of API models, supports local embedding models, and it gives the option to save chats as Note in Markdown, and in the future it will have Canvas. So I also want to note that when I first began looking at integrating AI with my Obsidian Vault, Smart Connections didn't have the option for local chat models, so I didn't even consider it. It wasn't an option for me. But now that they've upgraded it and added these features with V2, I'm excited to dive into it a little bit more. Okay, now let's go over to Obsidian. A couple points here. I'm not using my full vault right now because, again, like I've mentioned, I'm integrating AI now with Obsidian. So I want to be careful about how I'm applying these plugins to my vault. I don't want to accidentally send data away. I don't want to accidentally delete or corrupt anything with my main vault because I'm testing out these new plugins that will be connecting to something like a local model. So I have taken my tutorial vault, which you can see here, it's Wanderloots tutorials. This vault has elements that I give to my paying YouTube members. So you can see here, it's got this canvas, it's got my full molecular Zettelkasten system. But in order to give a true analysis of these different plugins, I didn't want to just operate on my starter vault. So I went to my Digital Garden, which is the public portion of my vault that I use the Digital Garden plugin to publish for free to my website at wanderloots.xyz. I just went to my GitHub repo and I pulled the entire vault that's public. So what that means is I now have my Digital Garden public vault here. And then I also went to my main vault and I created a copy of all of my book notes. So these have all of my quotes and key ideas that I've been building as I've read through a ton of books over the last couple years. And my goal here, my thought, is that a good test to see how the system will operate will be to see how I can connect those book notes that I've made that aren't yet public to my public vault so that I get some ideas on how I can augment and expand the public portion of what I've already been writing. And the final reason that I'm using this instead of my main vault is that I didn't want this to take forever. The first thing I'm going to be doing in Smart Connections or Obsidian Copilot is that I'm going to be creating a local embeddings model, an index, effectively, a map of meaning of my entire vault. And this vault only has a couple hundred notes in it, but my main vault has about 5,000 notes, so it would take a long time for that to index. So I figured this will be a little more streamlined for the purposes of this tutorial. Okay, now that you have a bit of a better idea on how this all fits together and what my goals are for the purposes of this tutorial, let's actually get into installing the plugins. So I'm going to go over to the community plugin, browse, and search for Smart Connection. So you can see this one has 430,000 downloads. That's pretty solid. That's one of the higher download counts of the entire Obsidian community plugin list. So that's a good indicator that people are finding this valuable. You can see here that one of the features is to run the Smart Connection view, and it creates this similarity score along the side. So when you're opening a different note, it will come up with suggested note linkages. And that's exactly what I was hoping to do with AI integration with my vault. So that's the key element that I'm looking to solve for with Smart Connections. Then there's also the Smart Chat option, which allows you to have actual conversations with your notes. You can think of this as like a question and answer with your own vault. And this pulls in specific data from your vault to augment the explanation and the answers that the AI is giving you. So you can think of this as, rather than running just ChatGPT, which is going to give the same answer to effectively everyone, you're able to customize the way that you're interacting with a system like ChatGPT so that it personalizes the answers specifically to you based on your entire vault. So that's really powerful, and that's a new feature that they've added, so I'm excited to check that out. And if we go down to the bottom here, we can see that it says you can introduce custom local models with Ollama and LM Studio. There's also a few other features here that I'll get into more later. But the idea here is that we've got those key elements that I was really hoping for. The key elements being the automatic suggestion for connecting notes together and the ability to have custom conversations with my vault without sending my data anywhere. the local element is really, really important to me. As an intellectual property lawyer and patent agent, the protection of ideas is, in my opinion, very important and something that a lot of people don't consider when they're using AI. And the legal system is still trying to figure out how to deal with all of this, but it's possible that a lot of people are shooting themselves in the foot by giving away their ideas to these large corporate entities. So for the meantime, in my opinion, it's worth staying safe and keeping your ideas private. Okay, so I go up to the top here and click install, and then let's click enable. There, so you can see it already has run a smart source initial scan. It imported 236 notes. Wow, so that only took 0.3 seconds to run my entire vault. That's wildly fast. The user agreement is by using smart connections, you agree to share how it helps you with at least one other person. So I am already agreeing to the terms here by making this video to show you how I'm going to be using smart connections. Okay, so now you can see I'm over on the side here for community plugins, smart connections, and there's a paid portion, so we're not going to get into that for the moment. You can see here that there's a pop-up saying API key is missing. So what that means is effectively I am currently unable to use the smart chat component. Now let's take a look at the rest of the settings. So there's a supporter license key. So if you want to do the paid version of smart connections, that's where you would enter your license. If you want to use the Obsidian GPT, which is a custom GPT model that the creator of smart connections has built, you can chat with your notes in ChatGPT and it doesn't upload your notes to the cloud. So that's an interesting element. But again, I don't want to get into opening something outside of the vault. I want to run something locally on my computer so that I never have to worry about uploading any element to even a web browser, even if it's not sending my notes to the cloud. Okay, so this is all related to the paid features. Now we get down to smart environment. So this is where you can go through and you can explicitly exclude files, folders, or headings. So that's interesting because, for example, you can see by default, it excludes the smart chat. So any chat that I would have on the side, once I get my local model running, it would automatically exclude from the smart environment. Now, you might be wondering why? Why would you want to exclude that? Well, for example, in my main vault, I actually have a tag that I use called hashtag contains AI. And every single time I copy in something from ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI, NotebookLM, I take the contents of that conversation and I add it to a note that automatically gets filed in my AI folder. That way, I can come to a system like Smart Connections and I can explicitly exclude the entire AI folder. So that means that everything that's included in the embedding model, which I'll explain more in a moment, is what I created myself as a human, not something that's been AI generated. So I can be confident that everything I have written inside of that entire vault that has been scanned and indexed for the embedding model comes from me. It's not from AI. So that's a good way to exclude something specific, an entire folder from your vault. Another element could be perhaps you're extra concerned about privacy. Maybe you have a folder called patentable ideas and you don't want that included anywhere in here. So you could exclude your highly confidential information. You could have client notes, you could have meeting notes, you could have medical information. Whatever the reason is that you don't want to include a file in your smart connections, you can just exclude it here. And you can also have an excluded heading. So for example, you could include something that says excluded, and everything that falls within that heading in a particular note is excluded. Or for example, if I want to run a query that has an AI summary of every single note in my digital garden, for example, I could do that, and then I could have the excluded heading from my embedding model be anything that has AI summary included in it. Okay, so now we get to the interesting part of this plugin, which is the embedding model. So let's just take a quick look. Okay, so I just quickly Googled embedding to try and come up with an example that'll show you how this works. And I got this great image from Google. So you can see here that you might have a data set of 5,000 meal items, and they each have a word associated with it. The embedding model effectively maps each of these words to what's called a vector embedding. So it gives it like a 1, 0, 0, 0. So effectively, it's creating almost like a GPS coordinate. It's a specific area where each file is located associated with like a latitude and a longitude, and then it organizes it all so that you get this relative distance between the different notes, between the different concepts. So effectively what this does is it creates a map of your entire embedding model that creates a distance between the different notes. And more related notes are going to have a shorter distance, and notes that are very unrelated to each other are going to have a larger distance. So effectively, the embedding model allows you to begin to get a semantic understanding of your vault to give you a map of meaning that goes far beyond just something like a keyword or a tag or a topic. So this is where we get more into the augmentation, the improvement over what we're already doing. A quick reminder that if you're finding this video helpful, I would love if you would please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. Word of mouth is by far the best way for me to grow my channel, so anything you can do to support me really means a lot. I know AI can feel overwhelming for a lot of people, which is why I'm creating this series to hopefully help people understand how accessible and easy it actually can be to augment your existing thinking systems with Obsidian or other tools. If you're interested in getting access to my existing Obsidian templates, like my molecular Zettelkasten system, or you just want to support me for the time and energy that I'm putting into the work that it takes to make these videos, please consider joining my paid membership on YouTube. My members are who have been enabling me to continue making these videos and spend as much time as I do on them, so thank you very much for your continued support. Okay, so 0% is embedded, and we can see here that we can get down to the embedding model platform. So you can either use the local built-in one, which I'm going to keep this as because this means that my data is not being sent anywhere, or you can use the OpenAI API. So for people that are interested, you can go to OpenAI and you can just log in and then you can get an API. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, and effectively what you can think of this as is it's a way for you to have something like your Obsidian Vault and you send out a request to someone like OpenAI using your specific API key, and then it goes and has a conversation with the main model that runs on OpenAI's servers, and then it sends back the answer to the API, which sends the answer all the way back to you. Effectively, it's a way for you to have a unique conversation with OpenAI's servers, but the key here is that it is sending your data to the AI server. So while that is useful, it costs money to do so. So that's just one thing that you might not want to do is every single search you do, every single time you run the embedding model, it's going to charge you money. And the data is not being kept private because it's going to OpenAI servers. So depending on what you're using this for, you might want to use your API key. It could be higher quality, it could be faster. But for me, those aspects are not worth giving up my data. So I'm going to keep this as local built-in. And then you can see here that there's a couple different embedding models. So effectively what this is doing is you can think of each of these as a map maker, a cartographer. So each model is going to do a slightly different way of splitting up your entire vault into those vectors that we talked about, the 0, 1, 0, 0, the GPS coordinates of your vault. And it's going to break things up in slightly different ways. It's going to organize it a little bit differently, and it's going to generate those distances slightly differently. This one's called Ivysaur. That's funny. So honestly, I don't know which one is best. I'm going to just stick with the default right now because why not? That's the one that they are clearly recommending I start with. And because I'm dealing with a local built-in model, I don't have to worry about my data going anywhere. But as you go through, you can test out different embeddings and see if one gives you a better answer than another. And I'll get more into that in another video where I'm going to do a benchmark comparison between these different plugins and how I actually use them in practical life to show you what's been working and what's not been working. So I'll get more into the testing of the quality and performance of all of these models and plugins in another video. Oh yeah, and here we go. You can see if you scroll down a little bit, it says to make sure the local micro V2 embedding model works before trying other local models. Local model compatibility depends on available CPU and RAM. So if you are struggling to run this on your computer because your computer isn't powerful enough, you can always reduce the number of tokens, the maximum context, so that you can continue running the local model. And here you can see as well, API models are not dependent on local compute, but they require an API key to send your nodes to a third-party server for processing. So that's really the value here, is that if your computer can't handle running a local model, that's when you would really want to get into using an API key because the computation happens not on your computer, it happens elsewhere. I'm currently running Mac Studio with Apple M2 Max with 32 gigs of RAM. And I specifically got this computer because I knew I was going to be running AI models. So this one should be more than powerful enough to run everything I'm looking for. And honestly, with the way that Apple's M series chips have been going, the processing power is pretty ridiculous. So I think you'll be able to get quite far with an Apple computer. I'm assuming that Intel also runs quite well, or AMD, because these companies have been building out these systems in preparation for running AI models for quite a long time. And then we get down to the bottom here and you can see it says enable mobile, which is experimental. So that's interesting. My understanding is that I'll be able to run this on my computer and then access the embedding model that's running on my computer through my phone. So it's a way to kind of pair the power of your computer to your mobile device. Okay, let's get going. Let's click run. So you can see here that it says 0% embedded, should run re-import to re-embed. So let's do that. There you go. So you can see all the number of tokens here using Taylor AI BGE Micro V2. That's funny that it's Taylor AI. My fiance's name is Taylor. Okay, so you can see that this has been around 20,000 tokens, 18,000 tokens. And now we have 100% embedded. It's using the local model with BGE Micro V2. So everything should be good. I kept the minimum length at 200 characters. So effectively what that means is if you have a note that only has a couple words, it's going to be excluded by the model because it's too short to be considered relevant. All right, let's see how it goes. So again, you can see API key is missing, which means that I can't use Smart Chat, I don't think. Nope. Oh, there we go. An unknown error occurred. So effectively, I don't have access to a local model yet. I'll get more into that in a moment. What I was really interested in using this for is the Smart Connections feature. Cool. Okay, wow. So you can see here, this note is the front page of my starter kit that I give to my paying members on YouTube, to my true fans and to my augmenters. Thank you to my members, by the way. Your support really is allowing me to continue making these videos, so it means a lot. But you can see here on the side, by clicking on the Smart Connections tab, the option that automatically appeared up both in the top and on the side here, it clearly has the term Zettelkasten. I talk about Zettelkasten a lot throughout this note, which I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's only for my paying subscribers. But you can see that all of the related terms that it's coming up as suggestions here are specifically related to Zettelkasten and to permanent notes, and a whole bunch of different specific blocks are being referenced here of the 6,768 blocks. So I can filter this if I want to. I can show the full path. I can render in Markdown. I can limit the number of results, and I can exclude by specific words. And I can also do lookup. So Smart Lookup is a feature that allows me to use the semantic search, which is the embedding model, to surface relevant notes, which are sorted by similarity rather than like a keyword search. So the key difference here is that we're dealing with semantic search rather than keyword searching. Oh, interesting. Describe what I'm looking for. Sure, let's do a PKM strategy. Here's a PKM strategy, which has a 65% connection. This is from one of my book notes on Outlive, where actually there's a section in Outlive that specifically talks about how you can use this book to improve your life, to live longer, to live healthier and with higher quality. So that is, in a sense, a personal knowledge management strategy because it's pointing me to a specific section of this book that talks about how you should be reading this book, which is a knowledge strategy. So that's interesting. Like if I didn't mention the word PKM strategy in here at all, but it's using the semantic search, the embedding, to recognize what a PKM strategy is and that a roadmap for reading a book falls within the PKM strategy. All right, let's just see what comes up for Obsidian. Obsidian Vault, Cultivating, Starter Kit, Recent Growth. Cool, so it pulls up my entire recent growth section of my vault. This is my newsletter, actually, where I've been taking portions of my public vault and explaining how I'm updating it over time, how I'm cultivating my digital garden. So that is obviously related to Obsidian. Let's try something a little bit more difficult. Augmenting personal knowledge management with AI. Okay, cool. So it gives me a whole bunch of different alloys. You can see one key one is bringing in the alloy example, where there's a concept called the generation effect, where artificial intelligence is used to augment my personal knowledge management system to help me identify knowledge that has the greatest impact on me. So obviously searching for augmenting PKM with AI, I almost have this exactly of AI to augment my personal knowledge management system. So what's nice here is that, again, it took the term AI. It recognized that it was artificial intelligence rather than just AI because I didn't use the word AI here. And the search, the specific keywords, is actually backwards because this says AI to augment my personal knowledge management system, whereas this has augmenting PKM. So it also understood that PKM is personal knowledge management. So again, if you were just doing a keyword search, this wouldn't come up with the result because it has the expanded term here. So that's pretty cool. Now let's check out a different note for a second. Let's go over to my public vault. Let's find something related to how to take smart notes. So this is a page in my digital garden. You can see if I go over to digital garden, books, how to take smart notes. I have the book here and I have quotes that are related to it within my vault that all link automatically using data view. And you can see how it's got this connection here, the knowledge graph. So it's clear that smart note taking has a 91% similarity, which it makes complete sense. This is what the whole point is. I reference how to take smart notes a few times. So clearly, how to take smart notes is related to smart note taking. What's also interesting is that it comes up with bird by bird, and it's saying specifically that what's being referenced here is the front matter. And this actually brings up a key element here. The reason that you're seeing multiple results throughout this list of the same thing, for example, smart note taking, smart note taking, smart note taking, is because the way that I built my embeddings model here is I did a block embedding. So this is embedding blocks using the embedding model rather than just embedding the entire note. So effectively, rather than splitting it up note by note and trying to point to one specific note, I split it up paragraph by paragraph or block by block, no, bird by bird, which is kind of the point of that book. So that allows me to pinpoint specific sections of a note rather than the entire note itself. So rather than just coming up with a note at the top saying, hey, you should link to this because it's a related note, it can tell me you might want to specifically access a particular block of the vault. So it gives you just a much more fine-grained ability to search through the vault here. Let's check out a different note. So here's the Obsidian Starter Kit, which you can see it's related to Obsidian Starter Kit, and that's probably because I have the Obsidian Starter Kit linked in here, and I'm talking about the Starter Kit a lot, so it has a very high similarity. And you can see the indicator here with the greater than symbol. This is pointing to a specific block within the Starter Kit. This just makes it really easy for you to locate specific blocks within notes that might be related to the note that you're working on, which becomes more valuable the longer the notes you have. Let's try a topic now. Cool. So if I go to metacognition, I talk about metacognition in my latest video on Feynman, using the Feynman technique, but effectively it's a way to think about thinking. So it's a psychological concept, a neuroscience concept. So it's interesting that I have a ChatGPT conversation on metacognition that I didn't include in here because I'm just using my tutorial vault. But what's cool is that this points to something like second brain. And why is that relevant? Because metacognition is literally thinking about thinking, and a second brain is something that helps you with thinking. So it actually does make sense that second brain and metacognition are very related to one another. Same with personal knowledge management, mind and well-being. Metacognition itself is a word that relates to the mind. So using a semantic understanding of metacognition rather than just a keyword definition, it's able to pull up concepts like mindfulness and second brain and mind and well-being as related concepts. And honestly, these are all great connections that I could then take a look and say, hey, okay, I see that these are the main concepts that relate to the concept of metacognition. Now I'll start building out my metacognition note a little bit more. Okay, so I think you get the gist how you can use smart connections to surface insights based on related concepts like epistemology and metacognition. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Metacognition is thinking about thinking, which relates to knowledge. So the fact that metacognition and epistemology are related is actually more powerful than it might appear, because a key word search of metacognition across my vault would never surface epistemology. So that's just really interesting. Okay, so let's create a new note for a second. We'll call this Obsidian Smart Connections plugin. So effectively, my key takeaways here are that this plugin is a good insight surfacer. It's about making those new connections between notes, between specific blocks of notes semantically, which is far more powerful than keyword searching. It's free to use, it's offline, it's privacy focused, it's incredibly fast, and yeah, it helps me find those gems and surfacing insights using semantic search and hidden connections. And that's all using the specific smart connection feature. And that's honestly exactly what I was hoping to do with AI and Obsidian, is have something that detects this similarity between my notes and helps me make those connections as I'm writing new things. I can just keep this pane open the whole time I'm writing newsletters and articles and try to find those hidden connections that I made maybe 6 months ago or 12 months ago that the AI is helping surface very quickly and automatically. That's, to me, truly augmented personal knowledge management. Now, before I get into the smart chat feature, which we can see is currently disabled because I don't have an API key or I don't have a local model running, I thought it might be helpful to take a look at the related notes section of the Obsidian Copilot plugin, because lots of people might not want to run their own model and they might not want to have their Vault Q&A, the smart chat feature, enabled. You might not want to do that because the API cost is too high or your computer can't handle running a local model. Well, this took absolutely no time at all. This took like 0.3 seconds to load all my notes and then about 20 seconds to embed the entire note base into the embeddings model that I'm then able to pull up with the smart connections view. So even if you only use this feature, this is already incredibly powerful. Now I want to compare this to the Obsidian Copilot version before we get into actually running our own local model. All right, now that you understand how to get smart connections set up and how you can begin actually generating that local embedding model so that you can produce those smart connections, the related nodes that are sorted by relevance and by similarity, we can start to get into the next level of AI integration with Obsidian, which is Obsidian Copilot. You can use Copilot alongside LM Studio and Smart Connections to run a specific local model on your own computer that allows you to ask questions about your vault. But rather than getting into that in this video, I decided to move the Copilot, LM Studio setup, and how to run your own local model to its own dedicated video to try and keep this a little bit more streamlined. So in the next video, I'm going to walk through how you can actually install Obsidian Copilot, how you can install LM Studio, which allows you to run a local model. So you can have an LLM like Gemma 3, for example, from Google, running locally on your machine that you can then plug directly into Obsidian Copilot or Obsidian Smart Connections to turn on that Smart Chat feature. I'm also going to walk through a comparison of the major features of Smart Connections and Obsidian Copilot so that you can start to have an idea on how you can use both of these tools to build out your augmented personal knowledge management system. If you found this video helpful, I would love if you would please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. Word of mouth is by far the best way that you can support me in continuing to build out my YouTube channel and my dreams as making this my full-time career. If you're interested in getting access to the templates that I mentioned earlier as part of my molecular Zettelkasten system, or you just want to support me in continuing to make these videos, please consider joining my paid membership. If you're looking to go deeper into Obsidian and how you can begin to structure your vault, I actually have a full playlist here that goes into the concept of digital gardening, which is a way that you can cultivate and grow your vault over time. So I have this entire series that walks much more in depth on how I actually organize my Obsidian, which is what's going to make the AI integration with Smart Connections and Copilot so much more powerful. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for part 2, where I walk more in depth on how you can set up Copilot, LM Studio, and get your own local model running in Obsidian.